Hello and welcome back to our second episode. I'm Candice Birmingham.
And I'm Jessica McBride, and this is the Future Focused Admin. And today we're going to be discussing how to be a strategic business partner, and then probably also a bunch of stuff about our personal lives.
Yeah, because we just had a weekend, there was lots going on, so we'll just tell you what's been going on. All right, so shall we jump straight in and tell everyone about your experience in being like a strategic business partner and what that kind of difference is of when you kind of did that jump from being maybe like an admin, more assistant, to actually being more of a strategic business partner in your EA type role?
Yeah, so when I started my executive assistant role, I started as a virtual assistant initially, and about 3 months into being a virtual assistant, so I was just kind of doing scheduling and, maybe a little bit of like running meetings, but nothing too major. But I was not really satisfied with that level of work. So I had and negotiated an executive assistant full time role. And with that, I knew that I wasn't going to be satisfied with like only doing those few items. Like I just need some, I need to be busy. Like I enjoy like having stuff to do. So I knew that I could read the CEO in a lot of ways and that like he wasn't interested in like teaching me how to do things. He wasn't going to teach me how to fish, for example. It was on me to kind of go out there and figure out how I could like improve things within the company. And so I got really comfortable talking to the CTO and the CPO. And, I got really comfortable meeting with all of the employees. As soon as the new employee came in, I made sure to like establish a really good rapport with them and kind of get to know them a little bit and like what their drive was and how they were going to be interacting within the organization. And, I started kind of getting ideas of different things that were causing problems within the organization. And instead of just bringing problems to the CEO, I instead went and researched how I could solve that problem. And then I would find solutions for it. So, one thing was our CTO was still mailing out laptops. Like it was, one of this thing where he would have to go out of his way to like order a laptop from Apple. And then like he would have to do this and he have to mail it out himself. And um, it was just like not the best use of a CTO's time. So it was like we're getting big enough now at this point. Like we should roll out some kind of like managed service provider. I've worked for a managed service provider in the past, so I was like, I think this is the good time to implement it. And he was like, that's great, fantastic. Like let's move that forward. And I was responsible for running the project. And that's a really great opportunity to be able to, get that level of trust and like run it forward. And like I said, really think the most important thing is listening to everyone kind of within the organization. And I always joke that it's like be nosy, but like be nosy in a professional way. But like if you're a trustworthy like person, people are like they're comfortable talking to you. They're going to give you a little bit more information probably than they would like their normal manager. And
Mhm.
it's really up to you, to find a solution. And I think that
Mhm.
that is really something that drove my career forward in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Um,
And ask
so I think that's
questions.
really part of me.
Yeah, ask questions as well. Like, see where you
Yeah.
can add value. See what's going on. Where can I see, efficiencies here and things like that. I totally agree with you there. Um, my story is that I kind of jumped from receptionist to executive assistant, and I tell a story all the time. It was a guy named David Hampton, who I'm still very good friends with, and he came on board in our company as the new COO, and he said, "I need an EA." I said, "Can I apply?" He goes, "Do you really think that you're like able to jump kind of from reception to a C-suite executive assistant?" I was like, "Yeah." Like, no hesitation. I was just like, yeah, I'm totally ready for that. Didn't know how to do PowerPoint anything because they didn't invest in training in me because I was just the receptionist. And I was like, no, I don't care. I'll do it. I'll learn it. I know, like, I'm resourceful. So he gave me my first shot. And so I jumped straight into C suite executive assistant. But the beauty of it is, one, I was young, but two, I was so ignorant. Like, I just assumed that because I was the executive assistant, I should be part of everything executive. Like, So I just started turning up to every single meeting that he was in and would sit in there with my pad and paper and be like, yes. And they were like, what is she doing here? And I was like, I'm his executive assistant. And they were kind of like, oh, is she getting coffee? I'm like, no, I'm here for part of the meeting. And eventually people got used to it and they were kind of like, actually, it's quite helpful having her in here. But it was complete and utter ignorance that I just assumed that I was meant to be part of everything. And so I just put myself at the table. And so I think from that, it kind of helped me in that I was like, oh, well, I can see the benefit now of me being in this. So forever for in every role, I shall be sitting at the table because I can show how useful it is that I'm there. Because as you said, you're across everything. You're talking to everyone in the team. So if we were organizing, a conference or something, I can be there and be like, well, actually, Jessica's going on maternity leave in 4 months. His wife's due to have a baby in 2 months. They're going to, LA screenings in 8 weeks. Like, what's going on. Everyone's so singular and looking at their own vision or their own team or their, singular tunnel vision, whereas you see everything and you're across everything. So you being in the room saying that's not going to work, or you're actually away at that time, or maybe you forgot you're having a baby then. Like all these things, and these are all real life things that happened to me where I was like, maybe you forgot your wife's having a baby. You can't go overseas. So having that person there that can run that, can see that, has that kind of like overall vision for everybody and has that intel of everyone and knowing what's going on in their lives and know what's going on in their calendars. A big part of that is also being involved in the other EAs and knowing and asking them, hey, what's the forecast for this executive's diary for the next couple of months? We're looking at trying to do this event. Will he be around? If not, who's the 2IC that can step in, and collaborating that way. So that's how I found I initially made the jump from being an administrative executive assistant to being a strategic business partner executive assistant. And I would say if you were to, and this isn't even me gloating, I would say that if you were to ask any of my executives, they would say, yep, absolutely. She would come in and she would look overall and be like, right, where can I make efficiencies? Where can I make this collaborate better? How can I make this more of a team? That was kind of my specialty as such. I was always the, I guess, connector. And that was always really helpful for the CEO who is time poor and just needs you to know everything instead of them having to sit in every meeting or them be across everything. They're the ones that are like, right, where are we at with that? And you're like, you can just deliver.
Yeah. How many times have you heard the phrase like, I just need a second brain? Like
Yeah.
I just need someone who can be my brain for me.
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
just be my
we
eyes
all
and
do.
ears in the office. Yeah. The amount of times, but it's true. Like they're only one person. They can only do so
Yeah.
much. And I think people forget that CEOs and presidents and whatnot are human too. Like they've got lives. They're coming to work and they might have had a fight with their partner or their kids being bullied at school. And so they're coming into the office trying to be on form, but they're like, God, my kid's being bullied. What can I do? Like they're human. So you've got to be able to have that human element as well. And I think
Yeah.
that's that's part of your EQ skills, which we'll touch on another episode. But I think, yeah, that's been my kind of best experience in being a strategic business partner, is going above and beyond, as you said before, asking questions with what's going on and everything, talking to people. Don't sit in your ivory tower and be like, oh, I'm sitting outside the CEO's office. I don't leave my desk kind of thing. Get out there, talk to people, go to the cafe, have coffees with people, like be the eyes and ears in the business, and be, what's the word, approachable. Don't be,
Hmm.
the devil wears Prada, scary person that sits there. What's her name? Emily or something. Speaking
Yes.
of, you would have seen that I posted that over the weekend about Anna Wintour's looking for an executive assistant, and they want the
Yes.
person to have a degree, which just
Uh-huh.
annoys me so much about America. Everyone wants people to go into debt and get a degree, but you're not guaranteed a job afterwards. And I think it was like 80K, which I don't know the American salaries. Is that a lot for someone like Anna Wintour?
That's
I just
really
don't
like for
feel.
New York, that's like a really low salary. I mean, I'm sorry. You know what? Please, like, let's edit that portion out. I wouldn't say it's a very low salary because that's very relative, but I would say for like for New York, and considering that it is such a high profile person, I personally would not take 80K for that level of stress in my life. Like, that's barely like scratching like my therapy bill. Like, that's barely like scratching like the time off that I'm going to need every like 6 months when I have a mental breakdown. Like, there's no way that I would take that on.
Yeah,
I'm not interested in working that miserably hard for someone because, yeah, the horror stories you read, like, no, not for
yeah.
me.
I just, yeah. And look, we're at a later stage in our career. Like if you were a young, sprightling little thing and you were eager beaver and you were into fashion, and living at home maybe where you could afford to only earn 80K, not only, sorry, I say that, but like it's not a lot when you've got to pay bills, especially if you live in New York. Like rent alone, like inflation. Come on, guys. Like I'm not saying 80K isn't a lot of money for people. What I'm saying is I don't feel it's a lot of money for that job. And let's face it, it's a 24/7 job.
And yeah, we go
Your
back
big
to the whole like the degree thing too, where that's always
Yeah,
kind of like my beef with like it is that it's such a generalist role. Um, I didn't finish college. I had to drop out, and honestly, like, God, I'm glad that I had to drop out and I didn't end up saddled with, $120,000 in student loan debt on a, degree that was going to be in communication. Like, I do just fine communicating without my degree. Like, I've done pretty good like in business, like without having, this piece of paper saying that I knew how to talk. Like,
yeah,
I just don't think that it's really necessary for like a lot of generalist roles like this, where it's like it's not about what you know, it's how you can learn. It's about like how quickly can you pick things up? How's your pattern recognition? How can you track what's going on within the organization and connect those dots?
yeah.
Those are the skills, and this is why I actually have like this theory around ADHDers and executive assistants. I get
Mm.
a lot of executive assistants telling me like, "Hey, like I have ADHD too. Like, it's so nice to like see somebody talking about it." Like, and I really do think it comes down to the things like we're people who have just like a lot of interest across the board, so we're very keen to like learn new skills and take on new challenges. And so that's why it's so exciting to like see this like kind of like new generation of admins coming about, where they're really like starting to like learn how to access technology, and really like grow the role in this like digital way that like we're both like such avid supporters of. Like, it's just really like cool to see.
Yeah, and I also think like there's companies like Google that have stopped putting that degree requirement because they've got coders and these young kids that just know how to work computers. Like they've from a young age, they've been gaming, they've been coding. They don't need to go to college. These people just have that brain to be able to do
Mhm.
the numbers and they see patterns. And you can't learn that in college or university. Like as I said, like I didn't go to college or university either. Like, and I did just fine, thank you. I got to president level, executive assistant, now own two of my own businesses. Like, I'm doing just fine, and I did not one, I didn't have the desire to. Like, if you do, awesome, go for it. You can always come back and be an executive assistant. Like one of the people that we did an admin spotlight on Admin Avenues is Martha Fernando, and she is a lawyer, and she is practice law, and she helps in law and family law, but she's still an executive assistant. So she went out and got a law degree, and she's a practicing lawyer, but she also is a executive assistant because she enjoys it more as a career, and she chooses just to help in law on the side. So, you know, knock yourself out. This is not a small scope career. This is do whatever makes you happy. But it just annoys me that I see in America that every single job you have to have a degree. It's like, how is everyone meant to have that privilege of being
Yeah.
able to have a
And
degree?
I think it's a good idea to reiterate at this time that like you really only need to be like hit like 40% of the qualifications like on a job description. Like, apply. Like, I've been pretty like open about the fact that I don't have a degree. Like I don't it's just it's not I'm not embarrassed. Like I don't feel like I
Yeah.
missed out on anything. And I
Yep.
think that like when I look at like the situation that like I went through like in my life, like it didn't work out for me. And but like there's never been like a career or a job that I've had where it just it seemed like, oh, I really needed that piece of paper. And I've had jobs in like I've done customer service. I've done let's see, I worked for enterprise, so I did like, running like account management or fleet
Hmm.
coordinating. And never felt like, oh gosh, if I just finished that like degree, this would have made things easier. Like no, it's just my ability to like buckle down and figure it out.
Yep.
um, but yeah, and I didn't like school. I didn't enjoy it. And even now, because like there's been times like in my adult life where I'm like, maybe I'll go back, maybe I should go back. And I get that pressure of like, maybe I should
Yeah.
have. I don't know. I'm completely flip-flopping from what I just said, but whatever, I'm human.
Yeah.
But it just seems so miserable. It seems
Yeah.
like the worst. And like to go back at 34, no shade to anybody who does. The idea of just having to go and be around the youths and like they're so full of life and vibrancy. And I'm too haggard for that. It's just, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Maybe really one day I'll decide, but I feel like I never had never had one thing that was my
Yeah.
thing, right? And
Yeah.
that's probably an ADHD thing, where
Hmm.
it was just like, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to do hardly any like specialty things. So it was like, what am I supposed to do? But everybody's
Yep.
like, go to school, go to school, go to school, because they're like,
Yep.
they're shoving it down your throats.
Mm.
Um, and I don't
I
know.
also
Yeah,
think
it just
there wasn't the education that you can find now that's online that there was. So it was you go to school and then you go to uni and that's how you work. Like that's how you learn. Like that you continue your schooling education as such, and then once you get to a certain level where you feel like you've got that skill set, you get the accreditation, you can then go out into the world. But I feel like there's just like there's so many different ways to do it now, and a big part of that is because we've gone online. Like you can
mhm.
do, and I don't want to say use ChatGPT for everything, but there's so much you can be doing to help you learn with ChatGPT. Like write me a program, or write me a summary of this instead of having to do like a 6 week course. You can like condense it. But I would say you just nailed it before when you said um, people in these kind of roles just figure stuff out. Like that's their kind of mindset is like, it doesn't matter what it is. I'll figure it out. I'll get it done. I'll get it. Like there's been plenty of situations where I've had situations where I've just been like, I have no idea what that is, but I'll figure it out. I'll get help. I'll like, that's just the mindset of the role is I'll work it out. Just throw it at me. I'll figure it out.
And that's what they're paying for, right? That
Yeah.
or that's they want to pay for it when they say, oh, I want a second brain. Is they want some person that is going to go and like think about that problem and spend that time researching, because think about what their hourly rate is, and like they have a finite amount of hours in their day and they're just trying to get by like the rest of us, like we talked about earlier. It's like
Yep.
they are human beings. It's like, if so you going and spending that 3 4 hours of research or however much it takes you to like, find a solution, that's a massive amount of time saved for them.
Yep.
And that's really what I find like is valued like in the role.
Yep.
You know,
And I think the other
what's worked
part
for
of it
me.
is being a confidant. Like I have found so many times in the roles that I've had, so much of what they're burdened with what they know, or things that are coming up, or cuts, or things where they want to talk to someone about it, but they can't. And you're kind of the only person that they can talk to or bounce things off and be like, well, what do you think? They're looking at doing this, or they're restructuring this, or we're going to look at cutting that, or that they need that person that they can bounce stuff off and know that it won't go further than you two, because you have that
Hmm.
trust and you have that ability to be able to give them honest feedback as well. So many times people feel a bit like, oh, they're the president or they're the CEO, and you just have to make them happy. No, again, this comes down to the human element of being able to be you, be real, and they know that, oh, she's going to tell me the truth if this is a bad idea. Like
Yeah.
and being able to read your executive. Like I used to have a boss, Michael Ebert was his name, and he was only allowed one coffee a day because it just really affected him, and he would not sleep. It just because it was in his system for so long. So I would see like he was flailing, and I could see he was looking for a coffee, and I'd be like throwing kind of water at him or teas at him or something that wasn't coffee because I was like, I can see you're struggling, but you can't have coffee or you won't sleep tonight. It's going to be double bad tomorrow. Like, and he just really appreciated those little things. Or if he saw he wasn't going to have lunch today, I'd just leave like a sandwich at his desk, just something that if he could run with it and eat his sandwich and then go into the next one. Just those little things. He was like, oh, it just makes the world a difference that you can see I need a little help here. I need a boost. I need to eat today. I need to, or having that foresight to say he probably needs a toilet break during, all these back-to-back meetings. Like
Yeah.
it's just that foresight that I think people in these kind of roles have, and it's that makes the strategic business partner so much more human and that kind of partnership element. Some people get weirded out when they say like work wife and things like that. I'm not a fan of that. Thankfully, no one ever called me that. They call me the boss. Like Michael used to say, "Talk to the boss. She makes the decisions and stuff." But I don't think those kind of and we've talked about this weird names for executive assistants and things where it's like strategic ninja and all these, please don't dull down our expertise, like please don't call us silly things when we've worked so hard to get respect as executive assistants to move on from the madmen, coffee getting, tight uniform, cute little office bells. Like we're not those people anymore, guys. It's 2023. We've earned our respect. Please put some respect in our check, as Beyonce said.
It's true.
We
I
love you,
I
Queen.
think about the ways that I was treated when I was 19 and working my first office job, and like what I just accepted as normal in terms of sexual harassment and like creepy salespeople being like, let me rub your shoulders. Like it was not okay. But like I had no representation to tell me that was not okay. Like because all of the women that I worked with, that was super normalized for them because that was also their norm.
Oh,
In
that's
South
just
Texas.
Gary. Oh, he's just
Yeah,
handsy.
that's just how he's always been. Um, and I think that's why it's so important to talk about this stuff too, is just like this idea of like sometimes just hearing that it's actually not okay for that to happen to you like is like a light bulb moment in your brain of, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, I find this all the time with like between you and like my husband, where it's like if I'm talking through something with y'all and I get like a consistent like feedback response from both of you, I'm just like, oh, I'm being taken advantage of. Like I'm not advocating for myself and like I'm maybe missing the clues. That's also some really good career advice is find people that will sponsor you in your career and will, be real with you and like you're not afraid to tell me like, if I'm being out of line or, if I'm being taken advantage of. And that's such like a valuable but career thing. So it's like in terms of like trying to be a strategic business partner is like find somebody within your organization that like believes in you and like is going to like go to bat for you when you want to like bring a project for. I think that's like a really powerful way to like, move up and, get some like control and power going.
Yeah. And I think also networking and being part of these admin community groups is being able to put it out there. Like you and I think are in every goddamn admin group there is known to earth. But we're vocal in them and we do give advice in them. Like where people are like, oh, I don't know what to do in this situation or am I being taken advantage of this? And it's like, what was your one recently about boundaries? And someone said you should make a T-shirt out of that. Like, don't let
Oh,
someone
yeah. Okay, so it was a
else's.
situation. Yeah, so it was a situation where she was putting time on her calendar. Like she just started a new role, and she would block off time on her calendar to make sure that she could get like her work done during that time. And the outgoing assistant made like a comment about like, oh, I guess that's okay. I'll have to like check into it. And so she was kind of like vibe checking with us, like to be like, hey, like, what should I have done? And I was like, don't make people with really poor boundaries make you feel bad for having boundaries or something along those lines. It's like,
Yep.
you take your boundaries and you run with them and you do everything in your power to hold those boundaries until it's like it's your job, basically. Like, I every time I leave a role and I go to a new one, I take new boundaries with me because it's hard as a person to create a boundary once you haven't. Once you have had role scope or scope creep, once you've had, this problem of like they just keep piling work on you and you don't know how to say no to it. So you just keep going, yes, 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 I'll take care of it. And then before you know it, you're having them on TB. So I just think that we need to set healthy boundaries. Like I kept my phone on do not disturb the entire like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday that I was out of town. I had an interview with a CMO a couple weeks ago that I think maybe I mentioned this already, that he like messaged me on a Saturday and was like, hey, can you interview? And I was like, actually, like I am busy. I'll be available Monday. And he's like, you don't work weekends? And it was like, I try not to. Like I don't take
No.
time off. So it's and you know what? It's just like sometimes it's you forget like you need to like have those boundaries, or you feel like you're not in a place to set up a boundary. It's like, how much in my career once again did I put up with because I just didn't know better. I didn't know that was
Yeah.
bad for them to do that. And there's like such like a struggle with the power dynamic. I think that's so like inherent in our industry, where it's like if you have a principal that you support that's not that doesn't see you as a strategic business partner, he just sees you as just like a cog in the wheel. That can be really, it's a downer. It's really hard, and like I don't. It's just really, it makes the job so much harder than it needs to be.
Yeah. And I think that there's a whole other episode to be put into boundaries, because I think there's a lot that we should be telling, especially the younger people coming in, about setting boundaries. I know for myself, I was the worst at having boundaries because I'm such a people pleaser. I was just like, I just want everyone to like me and I want everyone to think I'm an amazing EA, because I feel like I jumped the ladder. And so I had to prove myself that, yes, I can do it all. I don't need any help. And meanwhile, as I said, I'd never learned how to do Microsoft Office. So I was like side eyeing trying to learn how to do Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, things like that. And I ended up calling an EA and said, can you just teach me? Like, can you sit down with me and just show me how you do these basic things? But I was so eager to please. I just remember putting my hand up for everything. I was on the social committee. I was on this, I was that. And by the end of the day, I was a young little thing. Like, I should have been out partying and going to Friday night drinks and all the things that you should be doing when you're young and cool. But I was knackered, and I was just like, yes, I will go, but I would be going knackered, and it's not healthy. That's burnout territory.
I think
Nice
that
and
I just
young.
existed. Yeah, I just like
Yeah.
lived in a permanent state of burnout for, most of my existence because it was, just running and running and trying to get ahead and like trying to make something. And oh my God, I just feel like honestly the past like 6 months is like the first time like I've really been like, oh, I'm not burned out anymore. I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So
And
it's been
I think you did a
pretty
post
good.
about that today or last night, because we're in different time zones. I don't know what it was, but it was a really good post about how you were saying this is the first time you have been able to see that a lot of your physical issues, like migraines and things like that, was due to exactly that, just like pushing yourself way too hard. And when the
Yeah.
world stopped, COVID, um, it was the first time when you realize, oh my God, these things are ailments of my own doing.
Yeah.
Once I had time to do things, I stopped getting migraines. I stopped getting these ulcers. I stopped having to take 50 million Tylenol. Like, it's crazy to think that that's the position you'd put yourself in, and I think a lot of people did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Well,
also
and it's
think,
just so funny. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I was just going to say, I just think it's so great that you're sharing these stories because so many people will resonate with it and be like, that's exactly what happened with me. And if we don't talk about it, people don't realize and normalize it. People don't realize, yeah, 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 that's totally normal. You get headachy, you get
Well,
tense shoulders, you get all the bad things that come with being stressed.
yeah. Well, so much of like my audience right now, it feels weird to say, but is American, right? And
Yep.
I think that there's such like a significance to the fact that like I moved to Canada and I was able to access healthcare for the first time in my life
Mm.
because I did not have healthcare, or I had very bad healthcare when I was in Texas. And we have our flaws in our system. It's not perfect, but like I've always had spectacular like healthcare while I've been here. And I had a doctor and I'm seeing her for the stomach ulcers. And she's like, okay, but like, and I already had like an MRI, or I don't know, some kind of ultrasound or something about it. And, she's going, okay, but like, why are you taking this much Tylenol? And I'm like, well, because I get migraines every day. And she's like, what's causing the migraines though? And she's like digging into it for the first time. A doctor's like actually like asking me questions. And she's like, you need to go on medical leave like immediately. Like you and she wrote me off of work. And like that's preposterous in America. Like the idea of like a doctor and just being like, yeah, take 6 weeks off of work so like you can recover. And it was like, oh, okay. And it was like up and down for a while, but then like it would always kind of come back. Like there was another time where it's like I had incredibly high blood pressure, like in my 30s. And I was getting the migraines were back again. And, that was actually right before I remember sitting in the emergency room. It was like January 2020, and like watching them evacuate people out of Hong Kong from COVID, because I'd gone to the ER for this migraine, and it was just like the tip of the iceberg of like things getting kicked off. But yeah, and then I started working from home, and it was like, oh, I don't need to like lay in bed in the dark for 3 hours every evening. I don't, just cry all the time. Like we make jokes about like crying in the bathroom, and it's like, girlies, I actually have news. Like there is life on the other side. I haven't cried in a bathroom in years. Like it's amazing. There is life out there for us.
It's
You really
terrible
just
that you
need to
were
like,
even crying in the bathroom. Like, that's just terrible pressure and terrible. Yeah, it makes me sad when I hear that people go through that. Like, I've been lucky enough that I think the only time I've ever cried from stress in a job was I was put in a situation where I was being asked to lie, and I'm not a good liar.
I'm so
And I don't want to lie. And I remember the comms girl was like, "Tell me the truth," and I was just like, my bottom lip just started going, and I was just like burst into tears, and I was like, I was told not to, and they were like, don't worry, it's okay, but we do need to know the truth because if this comes back at us, we need to have be on the back foot. And it's fine, but that's probably the worst where I've been like, I've felt like you just put me in a really compromising position where you've asked me to lie. Like there's a difference between white lies and saying that your calendar's not available for a meeting. Like we all know that.
yeah.
But this was like asking for a big lie. And I was just like, I'm not comfortable with doing that. But I did it. And then thankfully I was able to get out of it. But that's that stress that you give to yourself as you're like, oh, I have to protect my executive, or I have to, be on their side, or, it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. If things aren't right, don't put that onus on yourself, or don't put that stress on yourself. That's on them. Like, don't do that. Anyway, that's a whole nother episode as well. But anyway, I feel like we've kind of touched on strategic business partner type experiences between us both. Tell us about yours. Tell us if you've got any questions about it. Like, obviously, we have very different experiences with it. We have very different, not just in roles, but also on the sides of the world. Like, I feel like the way that executive assistants and admins are treated on each continent is very different as well. So tell us about your experiences, your involvements with your bosses. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got any questions, if you've got any suggestions on what you want us to chat about or anything like that, we'd love to hear from you. Um, And I think that's about it for this episode. What about you? Anything else?
No, but we did want to mention that this episode is proudly sponsored by EA Buddy,
EA
eabuddy.com.
Buddy. And
Check
tell
it
us about
out.
EA. Tell us about it.
So EA Buddy is this really phenomenal tool that was created for executive assistants. I've worked with the creator for a little bit now. She used my ChatGPT guide for executive assistants to tune her ChatGPT model on the site. But the real amazing convenient thing that I love about it is scheduling. It just makes it so much easier to find and highlight times on the chart, and then it makes a template, and then you just copy and paste it, or you can integrate it into your website, your email, and it's just a really neat little tool. And it also has the time zone calculator, which
Oh,
I use anytime that we need to meet, because we need to go in and figure it out. I'll probably need it when I travel to Australia next year, because I realized that I'm going ahead 2 days on my way there, and then on the way back, I go back a day, and I think I need to hire an assistant just to book flights for me, because this is so complicated in my brain. I cannot even wrap my head around it.
yeah.
But I'm going to see a koala. I'm
Okay.
going to hug a koala, and
Mhm.
that is, mark my words, that's happening. But yes,
And
so
more on
sponsored
that
by EA
soon.
Buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So please check out EA Buddy. We're so grateful for our sponsors. So we'll put all the details in the show notes as well. And yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we hope to hear from you soon. All right. Have a good day, everyone, or evening, wherever you are.
Bye.